Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. From the outside, my marriage looked flawless. Helen and I had the kind of life people admired. A sleek apartment on the riverfront, weekend charity galas, vacations where every photo looked like it belonged in a travel magazine. Friends would tell me I was lucky to have her. I would nod, smile, and keep my mouth shut. Behind the doors of that apartment, things were different. Helen had a way of cutting me down without ever raising her voice. If we were at dinner with friends and someone complimented me, she'd smirk and say, "Damian just moves boxes around for a living." Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. Then she'd sip her wine like it was the most natural thing in the world. She liked to remind me where I came from. "Don't forget, you grew up fixing trucks with your uncle. My family has always been above that." Those were the words she whispered when no one else could hear. They stung less with time, but they never stopped stinging. Financially, I carried almost everything. My salary from logistics went straight into the joint account that covered the mortgage, utilities, and the life she liked to display. Helen's boutique PR firm brought in decent money, but it went to her personal account. That arrangement, once sold to me as fair, slowly turned into her way of holding leverage. Whenever she swiped her platinum card for another designer coat, she'd remind me, "Don't worry, you've got it covered." One night, while checking my credit report for work-related travel perks, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. A business line of credit had been opened in my name. The signature was mine too, but I hadn't signed anything. I didn't say a word to Helen. I just saved the document, made copies, and filed it in the folder where I kept everything she didn't know I had. That was my habit. Quiet, steady record-keeping. I never confronted, never shouted. I just stacked the facts neatly, the way I did at work. It happened after a fundraiser at one of those rooftop hotels. Helen loved those nights. Cameras flashing, her name in the program, the chance to remind everyone that she was part of the Lake family. I played my role, smiling, shaking hands, making small talk while she floated around in sequins. Later, back at the apartment, dinner was set out by the housekeeper before she left. We ate in silence for a while. I finally said what I'd been thinking for months. "Helen, I was thinking about leaving the city. Somewhere quieter. I've been looking at setting up my own consultancy. I could run it remotely." She didn't even look up, just tapped at her phone and let out a sharp laugh. "You? Start over somewhere small? Damian, don't make me laugh. You wouldn't last a week without me." I set my fork down. "That's not what I mean. I was talking about us moving. Together." Helen finally looked at me, eyes glinting. "Please, you're not going anywhere. And even if you tried to leave me, I'd make your life hell in court. My father's lawyer, Clive Renard, he'd crush you. You'd be lucky to walk away with your socks." "That's a lot of confidence." "It's not confidence. It's a fact." She finally pushed her phone aside. "I already know how to play the game. You think I don't? I've used your signature plenty of times for business. That line of credit? Don't look so shocked. It was for cash flow. You should thank me." I let her words hang in the air, nodded slowly, and said, "Good to know." She smirked and went back to scrolling. She thought it was over. What she didn't notice was the phone in my pocket. I had pressed record the moment she started talking. Her laugh, her admission, the threat, it was all there, saved. Later that night, I forwarded the audio file to myself and sent a short message to Selena Varga, the attorney I had quietly reached out to months ago. "It's time." The night Helen laughed at me was the night I stopped being her possession. She didn't see it, of course. She thought her smirk had nailed me to the chair. But by dawn, my plan was already in motion. I started with my accounts. Years earlier, my grandfather left me a modest inheritance I'd kept in investments under my name only. Helen always called it Damian's little hobby. That hobby became my lifeline. I liquidated a portion, converted it into cash reserves, and transferred the rest into an offshore account I'd prepared months ago. Next was the joint account. I didn't touch her deposits, not a cent. I withdrew only the last 3 paychecks I had personally earned. Every stub, every deposit slip was already scanned and saved on a secure cloud. Packing took less than 20 minutes. One duffel, clothes, my laptop, a hard drive with all the evidence, and a small box. I didn't go to the airport. Too obvious. Instead, I boarded the 1 a.m. overnight train heading south to a coastal city 2 states away. Fewer eyes, no paper trail she could access quickly, By noon, I was in a rented room above a marina cafe. I powered up my laptop, logged into a secure channel, and sent Selena a message with my location. She replied instantly, "We'll file within the week. Stay quiet until then." Around that time, I got a text from Gareth Holt, the concierge in our building. He'd seen Helen storm in with Clive Renard by her side, slamming her bag down at the front desk. Gareth wrote only one line. "She looks like someone just pulled the rug out from under her." I turned my phone off after that. No more texts, no calls, just silence. For the first time in years, I could breathe. The silence didn't last long. By the third day, the storm broke. I logged into my email and the inbox was stacked. The first was from Helen. "Where are you? Why is the account empty? Call me now." 2 hours later. "You think you're clever? This is theft. I'll have you dragged back in chains." I scrolled further. HR had forwarded me a complaint Helen filed that morning. She told my company I was using corporate freight contacts to smuggle goods overseas. I almost laughed. A month earlier, I had already filed a memo with compliance, documenting every client interaction, anticipating she might try something like this. They flagged her complaint as unsupported and defamatory. By evening, the bank manager from our branch left a message, cool and formal. Helen had stormed in demanding that her husband's suspicious withdrawals be frozen. The manager reviewed the paperwork, saw that the pay stubs matched the withdrawals exactly, and refused. She left in a fury. The lowest blow came from family. My cousin, Mariana Ortiz, called me. Her voice was tight. "Helen just showed up here. Said you're spiraling, hooked on painkillers, lost in some midlife breakdown. She even asked me to lend her money because you drained the accounts." "What did you say?" I asked. I told her to leave, but I recorded the whole thing. You'll want it. I thanked her and hung up, jaw clenched but steady. Helen wasn't trying to bring me back. She was trying to patch her lifestyle with my family's money. That night, I forwarded everything to Selena. She replied, "This is exactly the trail we need." Tomorrow, I file for divorce. We'll also notify the bureaus about the forged credit line. She'll be boxed in before she knows it. The divorce filing was barely stamped before the apartment became the main battlefield. I had bought it years before Helen and I married, but during our honeymoon, she convinced me to retitle it jointly. "It'll show commitment," she'd said. At the time, I thought it was harmless. Now it was her strongest card. She refused to let the court-appointed agent show the unit. Every time a buyer scheduled a visit, Helen found a way to sabotage it. Once she accidentally disconnected the appliances. Another time, she left piles of boxes in the hallway, blocking the elevator. She even filed for a protective order, claiming I had threatened her. The judge reviewed the building's security footage, elevator logs, front desk sign-ins, and tossed it out in minutes. Still, it was another week lost, another bill from Selena for the hearing. Clive Renard, her father's lawyer, buried us in paperwork. Pages of discovery requests, most irrelevant, all designed to drain my patience and my wallet. Selena told me it was their playbook. They want you to give up to make it stop. Don't. Every stunt becomes evidence. Outside the court, Helen spread poison. At the social club, she whispered that I had a gambling problem. An old colleague called to ask if it was true. I told him straight, "Look at my bank statements." The only thing I bet on was trusting her. The judge had seen enough by the third motion hearing. He appointed an independent listing agent and issued a warning. Any more interference and sanctions would follow. Helen smiled in court, as if nothing had happened. But her mask slipped when we left the building. She hissed across the corridor, low enough for others not to hear. "You think this is winning? You're just bleeding out slowly." I didn't answer. I let her words hang. Every time she lashed out, she gave me more rope to hand to the court. At night, in the marina flat, I spread the filings across the table. Every page was another cut in the long war. But I knew wars aren't won by shouting. They're won by outlasting. For months, it was one blow after another. Motions, delays, bills stacking like bricks. But I had been holding back one card waiting for the right moment. 2 years earlier, Helen had insisted that I guarantee one of her PR firm's contracts. "Just sign, Damian," she said, sliding the papers across our kitchen counter. "It's routine. You won't even notice it." I signed, but I also made sure my name gave me access to the firm's mirrored cloud drive. At the time, I didn't know why I'd done it, only that Helen never moved a finger unless she had leverage, and I needed mine. When the battle hit its peak, I opened that drive. What I found wasn't leverage. It was dynamite. Invoices from a vendor named Rowan Keats appeared again and again. Event placements, donor dinners, media packages. The amounts were absurd, 5 figures for work that never happened. Cross-checking the payments, I saw they had been pulled from donor escrow funds meant for charity partnerships. In the email threads, Helen's name was right there, approving, directing, even coaching Rowan on wording. I packaged the files, annotated every transfer, and sent them to Selena. She called me that night, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Damian, this isn't just messy accounting. This is fraud. We're not talking divorce court anymore. If we hand this to the state attorney general, Helen could be facing charges." "Then let's not hand it over," I said evenly. "Not yet. Let's give them a choice." Selena drafted a letter addressed to Clive Renard and Helen's father, Edric Lake. It laid out the evidence in black and white, attached the ledger, and ended with one line: "Accept a clean settlement, or we forward this file to the Attorney General and the Charities Board within 72 hours. There was no threat in the letter, just facts, dates, and exhibits. We sent it late on a Friday, then waited. By Monday morning, the tone shifted. Clive's emails came stripped of arrogance. Edric called Selena's office directly, his voice measured, almost pleading. They wanted to talk settlement. The war had turned. Once the ledger landed on Clive Renard's desk, everything changed. The sharp, mocking language in his filings vanished overnight. Suddenly, his motions were requests, and his letters spoke of amicable resolution. The judge wasn't blind to the shift either. By then, the apartment had finally sold, but months of Helen's sabotage had driven the price down. The court had all the reports, the missing appliances, the blocked showings, the fake maintenance emergencies. Selena presented every log and photo in order, a neat record of deliberate obstruction. The judge leaned forward, unimpressed. "Mrs. Lake Hartley, your actions caused substantial financial loss. This court will not reward misconduct." When the numbers were calculated, the equity started around a 60-40 split in my favor, reflecting my premarital down payment. But after sanctions and adjustments for the delays Helen caused, the balance slid closer to 70-30. She was ordered to cover my legal fees as well. Clive tried to push back, arguing about spousal support, about my retirement account, but the fight was gone from his words. Selena slid the fraud file across the negotiation table, untouched but visible. Everyone knew what it meant. Within hours, Helen dropped her claims. The forged credit line was closed. Rowan Keats, the vendor she'd partnered with, cut a quiet deal with the charity to avoid an investigation. A mutual non-disparagement clause sealed the agreement. No more smear campaigns, no more whispered rumors at clubs or fundraisers. When it was over, Helen didn't look at me. She gathered her papers with stiff, jerky movements. For the first time in a decade, she wasn't the one dictating terms. 18 months after I walked out of that apartment, the decree was final. Papers signed, accounts divided, files closed. No more hearings, no more lawyers' letters showing up in my inbox at dawn. The silence felt almost unreal. I didn't run off to some exotic country. I stayed near the coast, where I had landed on that first overnight train. I bought a modest workshop by the marina. Mornings started with runs along the pier, afternoons with work, evenings with a plate of food. Life was stripped down to its bones, and for the first time, that was enough. One night, an email came through. The subject line just read, "You ruined my life." The body was short. "I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a minute, then closed the laptop. No reply. Nothing I could write would change what had already been set in motion. Helen had played her hand the night she laughed at me across our dinner table. She was half right. I did leave, and the court was hell. But the difference was simple. I had prepared for it, she hadn't. Now, the apartment, the art, the status dinners, they were her memories, not mine. I didn't ruin her life. I just stopped financing the fantasy she built on my back. And I finally understood. The power she thought she owned had never been hers. It had always been mine, waiting for the moment I chose to take it back. Thank you for watching.